welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Right, hello everyone. It's another D3D4 Football Podcast. Absolutely loads to talk about today. And I apologise in advance if we don't get round to going in depth in your particular team this week, because there's been quite a few big sort of storylines in the lower divisions which we need to get through. Obviously, we missed the pod last week. Apologies for that. Thank you again for all the messages of support I received regarding it. A couple of new patrons to shout out early doors. Ant Evans, you legend. He's jumped on board. Crew fan, of course. Friend of the pod. Lovely to see you jump on board. And Graham, I think it's Graham Hopper. Or it could be Hopper. I do apologise if I've got your surname wrong, Graham. But thank you so much again for coming on the D3D4 podcast Patron campaign and showing us your support, showing us how much you care about the low leagues and what we're trying to do here. But yeah, busy week, boys, busy week. Let's just quickly get reacquainted with you. So Chris Stringer, how are you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm not too bad. I'm feeling pretty good after yesterday.
Yeah, your team on how many times have you won 6 in a row away from home in the history of the club?
So there's a stat that came out yesterday that since 1907, which is presumably when these records started, we've won 6 away from home in a row twice, including at the moment.
Blimey, you're on a good run.
I'll take it.
You're on a good run. Ed, how you doing, mate? Ed Walker.
I'm not bad. I'm a bit better than I was 2 weeks ago, if you can remember the state I was in back then. I'm on time for this one, so you can be pleased with that. But yeah,
doing well.
Not too bad. Not too bad, yeah.
Good. Right, let's jump in then and start with all the news in League One.
League One.
And there's a few places we could start, but let's make the obvious connection early on here for you, Chris, because Sunderland did not take long to announce their new manager. I thought there'd be a more protracted race in this. I was quite a big advocate of Danny Cowley going there because I saw what he did at Lincoln, changing a club's fortunes around. But they plumbed for a tag team, really. First, they got Christian Speakman coming in, highly rated 41-year-old, has come in as their sporting director or technical director. And he, of course, has a history of coaching at Birmingham, but his role at Birmingham was quite extensive. He obviously did player recruitment, youth development pathways for the youth graduates up into the first team. I think he had Jamal Gray come through while he's there. Jude Bellingham was another one. There was a couple of others as well who he brought through at Birmingham before they were sold on. So he's got a good record. And then a day later, although it came out prior, was Lee Johnson was going to be their new manager. And it's an interesting one because obviously, we'll discount yesterday's result, awful result yesterday against bottom of the table. We're going to a 1-0 defeat at the Stadium of Light. But some big calls already from Lee Johnson. Bring back Aidan McGeady, starting Will Grigg in the lineup. What can Sunderland fans, Chris, expect? As you should well know, seeing as he was 103 games in charge at Oldham.
Yeah, he's our longest-serving manager of the last decade, I think, or something stupid like that.
Is it fair to say he's your best manager since the turn of the 21st century?
Tactically speaking, in terms of the quality of football, I think it's probably the best I've seen as an Oldham fan. It was his first job in management. He really impressed with his attention to detail at the club. I think he will ruffle some feathers. He will try to control as much as he can, and I think he'll work well with his director of football, sporting director, as well. I know he came under some criticism at Bristol City for perhaps not doing too much with, or not as much as fans would have liked with the young players, but actually at Oldham he brought in the likes of Johnson, Clark, Harris, and brought through a few through the youth team. James Tarkowski was around at his time, so he worked really well with the young players there. One of the things I have noted of him at Oldham and actually at his other clubs is that he tends to struggle over the winter months for some reason. But I'm not sure that'll be quite the same at Sunderland having come into the job. I think he'll be eager to get going straight away. He was already speaking yesterday about the need for attacking players and strong players, pacey players at Sunderland, which is something actually we've not heard from the last couple of managers. There's been this issue for a while at Sunderland, and it's not really been attacked by any of the coaches.
No, I mean, even, was it Gary Parkinson, as Sam Allardyce referred to him?
Gary Parkinson, yeah.
Oh dear. Why get Sam, I'm not to go off on a tangent, but why get Sam Allardyce to talk about League 1 and 2 football? I mean, the guy clearly hasn't got a clue. I don't know.
He won it 25 years ago.
Yeah, he was, Oxford fans will know this, he was sacked after Oxford picked them to automatic promotion in 95-96. What a sweet moment that was when he was in charge of Blackpool. He lost in the playoffs, and I think they summarily got rid of him. But yeah, I think he's right though, because Sunderland lack a lot of quality, let's be honest. I mean, the fact they're bringing Aidan McGeady back speaks volumes about what he thinks of the rest of the squad, probably.
It's not even so much the quality. I think as a whole they have a quality team. They're just not playing in a manner that's conducive to quality football. I think it's the style of play that they really need to change, because I think they've got the players there.
I'd say maybe they have the players. I think, if you look at their attackers, we keep saying if they can get a tune out of Will Grigg, they're not going to get a tune out of Will Grigg. Otherwise
it seems to be going that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we can all sit here and hope that he suddenly becomes the player he was a couple of years ago, but it's very unlikely. So that means they've got Danny Graham, who is as mobile as a brick. He just doesn't.
What, 35 now, is he? 36?
Yeah, he doesn't move. And Charlie White, who is what he is. So you're telling me that's an attack that's going to get you promoted out of League One? I don't think so. I think they need to do something pretty swiftly. I'm not sure what young players they've got coming through, but Sunderland fans.
They've got a Class 1 academy, haven't they? It's a Premier League grade academy.
Yeah, it's a really good academy for all the Premier League clubs who just nick their players and take them elsewhere.
There was a good story with Lee Johnson, because I was a ball boy at Oldham at the time, and we started to go on a bit of a rubbish run. And one game we get called over and said, Lee Johnson wasn't happy with the ball boys at the last game, so he's asking you to slow it down this game.
Slow it down a bit. Yeah, that's clever. We'll have to keep an eye on those the Sunderland ball boys, see what they start doing. But I don't know. So you think this is a positive appointment then?
I do. I mean, the big question at Sunderland is what happens with their takeover. What goes on the pitch beyond that is sort of almost secondary for the time being. But I think if anyone's going to get a tune out of the players that are currently there, and is going to recruit in a intelligent way, especially with the quality of sporting director he's got alongside him, I think it's Lee Johnson. Danny Cowley would have been a fine appointment, but I think Lee Johnson is a very smart appointment. And
a big upgrade on Phil Parkinson, which is...
On Gary Parkinson, yeah.
On Gary, yeah, which is what this is all about, really. I mean, Ed, you got anything to say about this? I think generally speaking, I mean, am I right in saying it's possibly a bit of a coup for Sunderland? I mean, I know they're a massive club, so no disrespect there, but they are in League One, and you think maybe Lee Johnson, with the record he's had of late, he could have got another championship job, probably?
No, I definitely think he could have got another championship job, and I kind of echo Chris's point, really. I think this is a very good appointment for them. There were quite a lot of, I think, actual decent candidates. If you look at the list of potential managers that were coming in, Johnson probably wasn't at the front of my mind when Parkinson was dismissed. I was thinking, we talk about the Cowleys potentially coming in. I think Gus Poyet at one point was the favourite, which I don't really want that. But Lee Johnson, no, I think would be a good addition. I do think we need to talk about Wigan a little bit, though, because this is a great little win for them that's come around. I think it's their first win in 11 or something, and they've done it with one shot on target all game.
Yeah.
Which is quite something. Lovely goal from Carl Joseph, and it's ended up being a difference. And I know it's because, Johnson only really came in a few hours before kick-off, but give a little credit to Wigan, really, because they haven't had a lot to shout about this season.
I wonder why he took the game, personally. I do think, generally speaking, if you come in that close, then let someone out, let the coaches take the game, and then
he's not that sort of coach, though. He wouldn't let someone else do that.
No, fair enough. I mean, it's no big deal, is it? But I just think you can't really count this as a defeat for his first game in charge, really. I mean, some I don't think Sunderland fans would. Is the general reaction I got from Twitter yesterday. But
I did read somewhere that he was a serious candidate for the Derby job.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think you could genuinely say a bit of a coup, because he is a very good coach. He's got good pedigree, and he's been there, done it. So let's hope Sunderland start improving on him. Certainly the style of football, and Bailey, right? Yes, they did himself, no favours, a poor mistake leading to the goal, but he's still probably their best defender. And I think Lee Johnson loves him. Was his captain at Bristol City, of course. So I expect them to him to be an important player going forward for the rest of the season. But yeah, a 1-0 defeat yesterday, not an ideal start, and it's a poor run from Sunderland, so he needs to start working his magic quite quickly. Another team that we have to talk about, and our patron Ryan Kaleja has given us this topic, and he asked us a question for last week about how basically with all the fans now turning against Paul Lambert, and his position basically becoming untenable, what should Ipswich do? And obviously we're a week further on, and yes, they did win yesterday, a 2-1 win. It's a difficult one to judge really, because of course they were trailing, weren't they, at Plymouth until Argyle got a man sent off, and then they came back strong and won the game. Our defensive concerns about Plymouth, Ed, by the way, are starting to take a bit of roost.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah.
It's
not looking good at the minute.
Not been very good. But basically, the story with Lambert is that the fan groups are starting to openly say, look, we don't want him to be our manager anymore. Rather than pay for iFollow passes, we'll donate to a charity and boycott the club for the time being. Lambert coming out in a recent interview, I think it was after the Oxford game, and basically saying that the press and the fans are creating a negative atmosphere. It's their fault that things aren't good, and the fact that he's got 9 players injured, and the fact that the young players are going to start performing badly if they're getting this criticism and negativity from fans. He had a real rant about this. Then the club...
How long has he been a manager? He should know by now that you don't come after the fans. You just don't do it.
No, exactly. It's like a man who's under he's under a fair bit of pressure. But come on, seriously, it is what it is. Football is like this. It's an emotive sport. Fans, I don't agree with some of the things that fans readily do, which is put pressure on managers. I think far too soon. But you can argue that Lambert took them down. He got a mediocre finish last season. Their recent run has been poor. Was it 2 wins in 10 or something? It's not great, and the fans clearly are not behind him. So big problems. But then Evans, their chairman, comes out and released a statement where he basically said, I know better than the fans because I have this inside knowledge. We're doing well. We've got a lot of injuries, and some comments said I'm not going to fall into the trap of what did he say? Something about.
Be careful what you wish for, I think it was, wasn't it, with Mick McCarthy.
Clearly alluding to Mick McCarthy.
It's because they gave him a 5-year contract last season. They can't afford to pay him off.
No, they can't.
I would be very surprised if that contract does not have like a break clause in it that's like 1 year or 2 year, because that's standard. Which means, because I always find that 5-year contracts are not worth the paper they're written on, because they all have this break clause. If we want to sack you, we only have to pay you a year's compensation, which basically means it's a 1-year contract, essentially. But
a rolling 1 year.
Yeah, it may as well be. I mean, that's the thing with all these long contracts that they sign. There's always a caveat, but it basically is saying that they're going to stay the course and stick with Lambert, and fans aren't happy, and it's a difficult situation because they're in the league table. They're doing all right. Let's be honest. You can't sit there and say that they're not one of the teams up there. 3rd in the table today, 16 games played, 29 points. Lost 5 games now though this season. But it's a very Ed. Come on, what would you think? Because it's far be it from me to tell Ipswich fans what to think about their manager. He's clearly not done a great job, but at the moment, I can see why the chairman would be reluctant to make a change, because chairmen readily look at the table and that's how they make their decisions.
I think we're all kind of worried though that it could end up being like last season, where the second half they just drop off, because there is a sense that they're back to playing that really dull style. Apparently, I don't know if you watched. Did you watch Oxford Ipswich?
Unfortunately,
in midweek. Yes. That sums it up then, doesn't it? And it's just.
I mean, to be fair, like he does have some key players missing and stuff, but they were poor. I mean, they were readily dreadful. Like compared to Hull, who were very dangerous. You could see Hull had, Oxford were clinging on a bit at the end, and Ipswich didn't really cause us any trouble. Their goalkeeper had to keep the score down. Like we should have won that. And yeah, I didn't think much of them at all. They, even in the game where I saw them earlier in the season against Lincoln, they were pedestrian with their play and their build-up play, and I can just see them struggling more than I can see them getting victories. And their problem last season wasn't it? Was beating teams in and around them at the top of the table. I don't see them taking many points off the better teams this season either, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Difficult
Yeah.
situation.
It is a really tricky one in this. It just seems a real disconnect between those inside the club and those outside the club at the moment.
I feel a parallel
never
with
ends
it.
well.
I feel a parallel with Ipswich and Oldham in the sense that they've sort of done what we did at a division higher. They stagnated in a league that they thought they should be at the top end of, ended up dropping down and not showing any sign of getting out of it anytime soon.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, okay, I'll ask you this question. Should Ipswich stick or twist, Chris?
He's lost the fans, and that really changes. They're not playing good enough football, even though they are third. So that I will put in that caveat that they are still third, but I think they should be looking to a change at this point.
Ed?
I think we all would say change, but the problem is I don't think Marcus Evans thinks that.
I think with Cowley not in a job, you bloody get rid of Lambert.
You should, but I'm not sure I trust Marcus Evans to do that.
He's not going to do it. Come on, his statement is clear. He is not doing that, and he's not listening to the fans. So, Ipswich fans, love to know your thoughts. I've read quite a lot of stuff this week about the situation and what fans are thinking, but it's just difficult. It really is. But while you've got Danny Cowley available, would Cowley go there? I don't know. It's a big club, but there's issues, isn't there? Which I'm not sure. Like, you could see why Sunderland would be a more tantalising prospect than Ipswich right now, despite them being below them in the league.
Have more control at Ipswich.
Maybe.
I don't know what their setup is behind the scenes, but I know Sunderland, especially with bringing in a sporting director, it might not be the best Cowley position. Maybe Ipswich would give him a bit more freedom.
He'd transform that club. If given time, he'd transform that club. And let's be honest, in terms of budgets and stuff, with the salary cap, it's neither here nor there. So, I mean that's my thoughts anyway. I think if he's available, you go for him, but it's not going to happen. So, we'll move on, and we'll move on to another managerial appointment, which we were going to cover last week, but we will get into it now. Steve Cotterill becomes Shrewsbury manager. Unbeaten start. 3.5 year deal struck me as being the big, whoa, that's a commitment. He splits opinion depending on which set of fans you sort of turn to. Birmingham fans really not happy with Steve Cotterill's tenure at Blues, and obviously Bristol City fans love him. So I don't know. I think they had to change. I was not a Ricketts fan. His football was terrible. I didn't agree with his recruitment of basically him doing all the recruitment, and he ended up just signing a lot of his mates, often in the latter years of their career. First thing Steve Cotterill does is he brings in Keith Burt, and if you know Keith Burt, he was helping Cambridge with his recruitment this season, but obviously he was with Steve Cotterill for 3 years at Bristol City, and he's an excellent and very experienced. I think he's in his early 60s. He's a very experienced man when it comes to player recruitment, and obviously with Sam Ricketts getting rid of their head of recruitment at Shrewsbury and doing it all himself, I think this is a step back into the right direction that a modern and forward-thinking football club should go in. Chris, what's your thoughts on Steve Cotterill to Shrews? It's to me, it's a pretty decent appointment.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent appointment, and I think you've hit the nail on the head actually with the fact that he's changing the recruitment policy, because it's something we've talked about with Shrewsbury before. It was sort of an old school setup. If I'm not mistaken, they weren't so much like a lot of teams are now in a data driven sense.
Well, they weren't under Ricketts for sure. They were before that, and they their recruitment before that was pretty good for a club with their budget and size. But this last couple of windows has not been good in my opinion, recruitment wise. No,
I agree, and again, it did raise my eyebrow that it was such a long deal. But having said that, they're a well run club, Shrewsbury. They've got excellent facilities, and actually bringing in a manager that's got a bit of stability to get the club back on track. It was only a couple of seasons ago we were talking about them sneaking promotion to the Championship. So if he's got a project to build anywhere, it's at Shrewsbury.
Ed, do you think he's got enough about him to... Firstly, his big task is getting them out of the trouble they're in this season, isn't it? And just staying up.
Well, from a personal perspective, I hope they don't, but that's a different story. No, I think it's a great appointment. I'm happy with it. I know if you ask a Birmingham fan, they're not pretty with him, but I feel this will be a different story with him. I think you'll be looking more towards what he had long term with Bristol City, which would be really good to them, and I think he could certainly help get them out of trouble, but all kind of depends on who he manages to get in the January window, which you hope can be good. Because from a Shrewsbury perspective, you want to see them doing a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I like his. I think he'll change the style of football. He'll make some positive impact straight away. I mean, a 1-1 draw yesterday, leaving it extremely late against Charlton, but against Charlton, who someone said to me on Twitter, funnily enough, that Lee Bowyer keeps calling out his players, and is he on a bit of a sticky wicket? I don't believe that. Lee Bowyer on a sticky wicket at Charlton. I think for what he's been through there, he deserves a key to the city, so to speak.
We were talking about them not existing not long ago.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, was it a penalty? Yeah, probably was, and really well taken by Ollie Norburn to get Shrews a point. And yeah, so they'll take that, and their form is, they just need to get some wins. They're not losing a lot of games. I think they've drawn 4 of the last 5 in the league, so you can see that as encouraging in one respect, because if you're not getting beat, there's an opportunity to turn that round, but it is sort of a case of needing to do that quickly. Another team that you guys, and I don't want to keep bringing this up, but I will, because Lincoln City, I did tell you, were a good team, and Michael Appleton, I did tell you, were a good manager.
A broken clock's right twice a day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cheers for that. Right, but yeah, so they're doing superbly well, and I don't know. I mean, I look at the table now and I think if they finish second, that would be a remarkable achievement. In fact, if they finish in the playoffs, it would be probably a remarkable achievement. I had them down as third, and I thought when I put that as a bit of a wild card pick, really. But it's my Michael Appleton bias going in there. But blimey, Charlie, look at what they're doing in the table. I mean, and I think, was it 4 straight wins now? A very comfortable 2-0 victory at Rochdale yesterday. They've beaten Crewe. They've beaten Wigan and Swindon in the last 4. One thing I would say is, their tests will come against the bigger teams in this division, Ed, because obviously they lost 3-1 to Portsmouth, and Portsmouth really deserved that. They lost to Doncaster, and they did beat Ipswich, who are obviously above them at the moment, or sorry, just below them now by 1 place. Drew with Fleetwood. So, but I'm looking at the game coming up with Hull just before New Year, thinking, that's a real test for them, and they got Sunderland next. So, what do you think? I mean, how realistic is their current position? Is it a false position, or do you think it's a bit early to judge?
I don't know, because I look at the ones below. You've got Ipswich, who are in a state at the minute, Portsmouth, who are incredibly inconsistent, Peterborough seem to have fallen off a bit, and then Charlton, who are inconsistent as well. So you've got to say at the minute, I think they're deservedly second and a couple of points behind Hull. And it looks like those two, with a game in hand, could even extend further ahead. So they're probably in one of the most stable conditions out of the teams in the top 6 at the moment.
Yeah, I absolutely love what he's done with that team. I mean, he's brought in like we said, his own brand of football. I think there was a stat on Quest last night which suggested that about 40 goals scored and 28 of those have been scored by players he brought in. No surprises there at all. His recruitment has always been second to none in the teams that he's had. People look at his CV and go, he's rubbish at Portsmouth, rubbish at Blackburn, blah blah blah. Come on, the clubs that he went to and in the condition that they were in at the time. If you remember, like Blackburn was a basket case, as was Portsmouth when he was there. When he finally got his feet under the table at Oxford and he had his control and his recruitment ideas, they were superb. Lincoln, I mean, I look at that team that they put out yesterday, playing their sort of 4-3-3. Brennan Johnson, Hopper, Anderson up front, all quick, pacey players with, an eye for goal. Creativity in the midfield comes from McGrandles and Grant. Jones, who scored the goal, who you'd say is probably more of a protective midfielder or an all-rounder, and they've got Aoma at right wing back, Aidan at left wing back, or left back and the full back positions, but they get forward quickly. They're almost like wing backs. And probably, am I bigging this up too much? But is this not the signing of the season in the division by anyone with Lewis Monsma?
No, I'd back that. I would back that.
He's been amazing, hasn't he? Let's be honest. He's been one of those bits of recruitment that you just sort of tip your hat to, because not just his goals. I mean, goals will get him these headlines, and sometimes that's a sort of a red herring. But actually, his all-round play. So he's good with the ball at his feet. He's good defensively. He's got great awareness, and personally, I can see him being a player to play at a much higher level. Probably, I mean, he's as good as Rob Dickie, I'd say. Looking at what he's done so far, maybe even better. So I don't know.
I've loved the James Jones signing as well from Crewe. I think he's a wonderful midfielder, and I think it's a real coup that they managed to pick him up. And I'm a bit surprised no one else really went in for him, because I think he's a lovely player.
I agree with that.
I think James Jones was only difficult at Crewe was the fact that he was struggling to get into a midfield with Lowry and Ryan Winter already in it. So, the pathway for him and game time was perhaps less available. But no, Imps doing fantastically well. Nod to Rochdale though, 4-0 win at Plymouth midweek. Really good performance that. Stephen Humphreys had an absolute blinder as well. Really good effort. And for them, a 2-0 defeat against a team currently riding high is that will not define their season. But
where did that 4-0 win come from though?
It came from Plymouth being shoddy at the back. That's where
there was some good Rochdale play
half time, didn't he?
Yeah, but let's be fair to Rochdale. They did produce some good football in that game as well.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, Plymouth can't defend. What have they conceded now? Is it like 10, 12 goals in the last 3 or 4 games or something ridiculous?
Oh, let me have a look.
It's not been good.
It was a 5-1 at Fleetwood, a 1-0 loss to Peterborough. They beat Lincoln, then they lost 4-0 to Rochdale and 2-1 to Ipswich.
Yeah, because he's the
so
third
you've
most
got
in the league this season.
12 in 5 games.
Yeah, how many they conceded, Chris, in the league?
This season, 27. The worst is Swindon, 32. Then it's Burton, 30. Plymouth, 27.
Therein lies the problem. As we said pre-season, we were always going to be worried, not about the way they went forward, but certainly about their defence. And funny enough, Plymouth actually scored more goals this season than Lincoln.
Yeah.
But Lincoln have conceded 10. So
they conceded 10. That's mental.
That is mental. That is.
Alex Palmer. That's all you need to say.
Yeah.
We had him for one game. I can't remember if it's last season or the season before, and he was fantastic in that one game, giving it large to our fans and everything. Loved him.
Indeed. He is a great keeper. Great coup as well. I mean, I thought he could be in the Championship this year. But other results to breeze through before we move on. Gillingham beat Swindon 2-0. Swindon will feel that if they'd taken their chances, they should have got something out of that game. But, for Dane Oliver, scoring sensation, 7 goals this season. I think 4 in the last 3, so he's doing really well. AFC Wimbledon lost 4-2 to Bristol Rovers, who saw their first win under Paul Tisdale. And it's been coming, and Brandon Hanlon playing really well in that game, but I think bagging a brace, if I'm right, and did well. Burton and Crewe, Ed 1-1. Still not being able to sort of get the victories. What was your thoughts on this one?
I'll keep it quite brief. First half this is probably a game, to be honest, you could have turned up a hard time and got the benefits of, because the first half was quite flat. Crewe were trying to do the usual thing, playing around the back. Burton was set up in a way much like we did win over Charlton 10 days ago, where it was all keep quite deep, keep quite tight, stop them playing forwards, let them have it around the back and wait for the opportunity to pounce. And Crewe looked very cautious about getting caught out, so they were lot of passes were between the back four. There was very little progressive forwards, and clearly David Artell got into them at half time because they came out firing in the second half, opened the game up more, a lot more entertaining. Burton take the lead with their only real attempt, a great header at the back post from Sam Hughes, very dominant in the air. He's proven a really good signing. But we failed to see out the win, and to be fair, it's a lovely goal from Owen Dale, a wonderfully connected overhead kick where you could have put the whole team on the line. He wasn't stopping that. It's wonderful.
I have it on good authority that Zlatan Ibrahimovic has posters of Owen Dale on his
I've
wall.
heard that as well. And I don't think a draw's the worst result in the world. It'd be nice to have sealed out the win, certainly would have helped a lot more, but it's now 3 games unbeaten, and I'm feeling a bit better than I was 2 weeks ago, let's put it that way, after that Northampton defeat. We'll see how it goes further ahead.
Yeah, Perry Ng, of course, 6-game ban for spitting water at a member of the coaching staff of Cheltenham in the FA Cup. Silly boy. Shouldn't have done that. And I think in COVID times as well, that's not going to...
I had a different word in mind there, James.
Yeah.
They've had their replacement yesterday was Travis Johnson. I think it's his first league start, and he was all right. I don't think he's quite as dynamic of his Perry Ng. He's a bit more inexperienced, but I thought he was okay yesterday.
Indeed. Blackpool, a 1-0 win in the Fylde derby. That's the first win at Fleetwood, I believe, in these matches. And they're on a great run as well. Neil Critchley really turning things around. We'll discuss them probably more in the coming weeks. Northampton lost at home 2-0 to Doncaster in a kit clash. Chris was whinging to me about last night.
Right, honestly, in the midweek, Oldham had to wear their away top at home because apparently blue clashes with white. Northampton and Doncaster were both in Hope kits. They both wear red.
I can see I've got a picture of it here from the highlights, from the thumbnails of the highlights, and it is ridiculous.
It hurt my head.
Stupid. It's stupid. As we said, Ipswich beat Plymouth by 2-1. Portsmouth doing a bit of a good run, 2-0 win. Tom Naylor, fantastic goal in this one. Peterborough, a bit of a slide. I saw them in midweek against FC Wimbledon, and they didn't really impress me, to be honest. A defeat there. Not looking good, as we said. Shrewsbury 1-1 with Charlton. Oxford are 1-1 with Hull. I was pleased with our first half performance. I think we had to cling on a little bit at the end, but you can see why Hull are doing well. They've got a lot of dynamic players. Malik Wilkes was giving Josh Ruffles hell all game long. He really struggled to contain him. But I was pleased with the result in the end. I think we'd have taken that before kick-off, and it's an improvement. It's an improvement from Oxford, and I think Oxford fans who thinking we'll do any better, just let's not get relegated this season. I'll be happy with that right now, given the form we've been in. I think it's an important season, both financially and just because of what every club's gone through, just to not get relegated. Last but not least, Accrington Stanley 2, MK Dons 1. Firstly, shout out to Carlton Morris for one of the best goals I've seen this weekend. Really good goal. Just kept going, great run. Not great defending, but let's not smudge it. That was a really good goal. But Accrington Stanley's form, guys, is superb, isn't it?
Yeah, what's that? 4 wins in the last 6. I don't know what it is beyond that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean they've been absolutely brilliant. I think considering what they are as a club, I mean it's absolutely amazing. They haven't lost in 7 unbeaten in the league. Only 1 defeat in the last 10 games. They've won 7 of those. Yeah, I mean 7 wins in the last 10. I mean it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. They're flying. They've got to go to Wigan next and then Gillingham, but a couple of away games. Their only defeats this season were away at Ipswich, at home to Oxford, and funnily enough against Burton as well.
I can't believe we beat that team twice this season.
Yeah,
cannot believe it. They haven't beaten. They've lost 2 games against us. Can't believe it.
Massive credit to the management for what they do there, week in, week out. Excellent stuff. The table reads like this: then Hull City top, Lincoln second, with Ipswich, Portsmouth, Peterborough and Charlton in those places. Accrington 7th. I mean, that's remarkable.
2 games in hand as well.
Yeah.
3 games on some, actually.
3 games on Peterborough.
They could be in it.
Screenshot that. Accrington above Sunderland in the same division.
Well, the thing is, if they win their games in hand, they go 3rd.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Well, they could go 2nd, couldn't they, on goal difference potentially?
They could actually. If they win both those games 3-0.
Yeah. I don't know what the games in hand. I imagine they're probably winnable.
Well, they've got. Well, I don't know. Exactly. I don't know what the games in hand are. I know the next 2 are both away. But Wigan bottom, no surprises to be quite honest. There, Shrewsbury, Burton, and Oxford. How can we have 2 hosts of this podcast with their teams in the bottom 4 of League One? It's ridiculous.
It makes a change. I find it quite refreshing.
Yeah, that we're the ones. We're the ones.
Imagine
struggling.
if we're all in the same division next year. I don't want to think it, but.
Don't say things like that.
Nightmare.
Right, let's move on before we all start getting depressed and playing violin music. Let's jump into League 2.
League 2.
And in League 2, I want to start with Cheltenham because what a win! I mean, I looked at that game and I thought that's a tasty fixture, isn't it? It's going to be a good one. Both scoring loads of goals. 5-3 it finished to Cheltenham. Their form is sensational, and I thought if you can beat Exeter in the way that they did, then that's a title credentials, guys. That's what I'm thinking of with Cheltenham this season.
No, I echo. Yeah, I agree, definitely.
And I'd also say probably in looking at this division, and this may ruffle a few feathers, but apart from perhaps Mike Flynn, is there a better coach at this level in League 2 than Michael Duff?
I would look at Holloway. I would. I think he's still one of the most reputable and prestigious managers at this level, with a difficult situation at Grimsby. But Michael Duff's fantastic.
He's certainly done a great job, hasn't he, since going there? Because you look at Cheltenham, and not being unfair to them, but they were not an automatic promotion side or a side that you would tip for that. At any point, really. They're a side that...
Quite the opposite a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah, they've always been one that tend to struggle. I know they've had spells in League One, but, they are perennial 4th Division side and, not one that you'd look at, looking at the teams in there at the moment that you think would do well. And yet here they are, 2nd in the table, 1 point behind Newport, who do have a game in hand, but fantastic football, playing with this system where he's the back three and the wing backs to get forward, and Lloyd is playing really well, isn't he? Let's be honest, he's come on leaps and bounds, and he's been given opportunity and taken it. Alfie May, who's been a bit critical of his form this season, but I still think he's an excellent player. And you've got people like Ruben Reid, Williams as well to come off the bench, and just every position is strong. It's good to see. Great recruitment and a brilliant win yesterday. I'm loving it. And like Exeter City, they've been flying as well. Let's give them some credit. And the way these two teams played, I mean, if you're not going to see your football team play for 8 months and then you're going to be allowed back in the stadium to see them play Exeter, 5-3 is a good welcome.
Fair play. It's good value for money. That.
It certainly is. It's a great result and fantastic football. Right, let's get into this Oldham away form, Chris. Come on. Literally on my notes here, I've got Oldham away form, WTF. As in, what's going on? You've won one, ironically, against Cheltenham at home this season.
Yeah.
But on the road, right, you have been imperious. Apart from that 3-0 defeat at Wet Stevenage on the first away game of the season, you've drawn at Colchester, you've beaten Bolton, you've beaten Southend, you've beaten Exeter, you've beaten Cambridge now, and obviously that crazy 4-3 win at Barrow. Obviously you lost to Salford, but less said about that game the better. But you've been winning in the cups away from home as well. I mean, you've got Newport next. That's another toughie on the road.
Yep, and that would be, I think that would match the record of away wins in our history.
Yep. All I will say is no one's beaten Newport at home in the league yet, so now's the perfect time.
Yeah,
that's all we'll say on that.
It's a strange one because as long as I've been watching Oldham, I'm not sure if we've ever had a season where we've won more at home than we have away. We've always been, as far as I've watched us, better away from home, and I'd always assumed that's to do with our away following. We tend to be rather quiet at home and rather loud away from home. But of course, there are no fans this season. In fact, quite the opposite. There were only home fans, theoretically anyway. There were a couple of Oldham fans that snuck in at Cambridge. So I don't understand it. I'm just riding the wave and enjoying it.
Do you ever think it's due to tactics, like the way a team set up away, even psychologically, even though there's no fans, could be the reason? Because you've got some good players on the break. I mean, Conor McElhaney is, like I said before the season started, he's too good for this level, and he's proved it. Bahambula, my favourite player, is just so fun to watch, despite the fact that
I really like Alfie McCown once as well. I think
he was excellent. He's been excellent the last couple of games, especially yesterday. I don't know what it is. I watched us against Tranmere in the week.
That was terrible, wasn't it? Flat performance.
It was a flat performance, and what we really showed was that we still lack that older head in midfield. And I still think our defence could be stronger. And maybe it is a mental thing at home that we need that. Maybe we need that older head. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's the pitch this season because the pitch is in good nick. I'm struggling to think why we're so poor at home and so good away.
Do you like Harry Kewell as a coach? I mean, players seem to like what he teaches, and he's got a pedigree in the game, especially as a player, that is something to look up to, and I think that can help you sometimes. Yeah,
so I chatted to a couple of players earlier in the season, and they said they really enjoyed his coaching sessions. I'm warming to him. I wasn't convinced for a little while. I think he sometimes tries to play a style of football that there simply isn't the quality of player for in League Two. Probably down to the fact that this is a guy that was playing Champions League football not too long ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm warming to him. I think he's learning more about his players. You can see he understands his team better every week.
He's pretty honest as well, isn't he? Like, he doesn't. He says a few cliches, but he's actually pretty honest. When you play badly, he says we were rubbish, and he was very angry with the Scunthorpe performance, and indeed he's been pretty honest about the crap home form as well.
Yeah, I think he knows when we've played poor football, and I don't think he sometimes frustrates me with some of the comments he comes out with in his post-match interviews, but maybe that's just me being miserable after losing.
Yeah, try having Carl Robinson. Try having Carl Robinson.
But yeah, I think I'll be interested to see what happens in January. I think he knows the places that he needs to improve. He's spoken a bit about that.
Are we going to see David Wheater?
I suspect not. I suspect he won't play for us again.
No, I don't think he'll come back, will he? Very unlikely.
Which is a real shame, because I think he's actually would be the old head that would do well in this team, because he's got more EFL performances than the rest of the team combined.
Yeah, that's
so brave, but I've had this rant too many times on this podcast.
Yeah, that's
every week.
It is what it is situation, isn't it? It's really frustrating, but nothing anyone can do about it. Ed, Scunthorpe. There's no denying that Scunthorpe started this season appallingly. They were terrible. However, there were mitigating circumstances. They had the COVID outbreak. Neil Cox having to play a lot of young players, huge inexperience, a lot of his key men out. As soon as they got this team back, and actually Neil Cox stopped farting around with the system, and I don't want to be unfair to him, but he was trying all these weird formations and none of them were working. He's gone back to either a 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1, and it's worked a treat. And they're on a great run. They've got their senior players back. Clark coming back at right back is a huge deal for them, because that was a very weak position for them. They've got McGeehee and Honoris playing really well at centre back. I know they've got Junior Brown out for 6 weeks with a hamstring injury, but Mason O'Malley has really taken his chance. He's a player who I've been watching, and I know he's, even when they were struggling, he perhaps didn't appear to be that good, but he certainly, I don't think, looked out of place in the first team. And I know he only did, he did a great delivery for the cross, and he's still a young player. You can't pin that on him as saying he's going to be a worldie, but certainly a bright prospect. But they're winning, Ed, and bright at times. Beating Leyton Orient is who are in great form. No mean feat.
No, it's fantastic from their perspective, and I think the main part for me, which you touched on before, is that they're finally using Abu Issa and Alex Gillid as wingers, which is what they are.
Oh, they were superb against Harrogate, weren't they?
They were fantastic. They're two of the best wingers in the division easily. And what I love about the whole side generally is, first of all, you've got Kevin Van Veen still to come back again, so you're going to get even stronger. Ryan Loss started to look really good as well. And when Van Veen comes alongside him, you've got a very formidable front two there. And the squad in general is quite young. There's a lot of potential in the squad. You look at people like Beeson and Spence not too old. Rees is not too old. Mason O'Malley, like you said, has been fantastic. Ryan Loss not too old either. So the potential in this squad is pretty good. And I love the signing of Mark Howard in goal as well, who's come in, taken the pressure away from Rory Watson, a more experienced head, and he's just become such a reliable presence in there. And they really look like they're going to kick on and get away from all this trouble they found themselves in at the start of the season.
Absolutely. If you haven't watched the highlights of the Harrogate game, go and watch them. Alex Gilead was turning people inside out. Mo Issa was doing, Abu Issa was doing the same, and he's been great, like you say. And Alfie Beeston goes about his business quietly, but that's another good young player they've got.
Well, they're keeping Jake Taylor out of the team at the minute, which Port Vale fans will tell you how good Jake Taylor was from last season, and it kind of says a lot about Beeston and Spence that he's not easy to use Jake Taylor in the starting 11 at the minute and still getting results.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got Colchester next at home, and then Southend away. So you'd back them to, if they carry on their good form, to get some points there, definitely. But well done to Neil Cox. I think he's had a rough start, but he's finally found the system and he's got the players back that can do well. And I think Scunthorpe fans should be feeling very positive about the current situation. One set of fans that are not feeling positive about anything right now are Bradford fans. They have been appalling.
Good reason. Yeah, good reason. They were. I watched them in the cup against us. Was that last weekend? That was last weekend, and they were so poor.
They were lucky to just lose by the score they did when it was finished 2-1, didn't it, in the end? But they
2-1 there. One wasn't it? Two absolute screamers from us, but we probably should have had 5 there. 1 goal came from a penalty. I don't know. I felt sorry for O'Donnell last week actually, because he kept them in it. But actually his form during the season's not been the strongest, and as a team they just don't look connected. And this isn't a team that you look on paper thinking should be relegation fodder. They shouldn't be anywhere near there, and there is a serious risk that they could be in danger this season now.
Stuart McCall recently signing that 1-year contract and talking a lot about the lack of firepower up front because of injuries. But I looked at Lee Novak and Curtis Guthrie and the like. are they going to really? Are those the players that are going to really kickstart this team and move them up the table? I mean, it's hard to see, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You would hope Lee Novak could take them out of the bottom two, but you can't even guarantee that. I think he is their best striker, Novak, but he's not exactly a particularly inspiring centre forward at the minute, is he? Really?
It's not just the goals that are the problem, though. They're not creating enough chances. They look defensively all over the place. It's not just an attacking problem for them.
It's a sad state of affairs, to be honest. I mean, this is a team, Bradford, who I remember seeing David Weatherall score that last-minute goal to keep them in the Premier League. They beat Chelsea in the Cup, famously. I think under Phil Parkinson, probably it was.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's just...
The worst part about it, I've been talking to Bradford fans quite a lot about that recently. There's a lot of Bradford fans who don't think there's a problem. I've noticed there's a real divide in the fan base between people who generally are looking at the situation and really concerned, and others who kind of think this is just a bit of a dull patch and they're going to pick up. And I've gone with us. I don't know where they pick up because they don't. I think their 2 wins this season have come against sides that were at the time in the relegation zone.
Well, they beat Southend 3-0. They beat Mansfield 3-1 away, and they beat Stevenage. That's the 3 teams they've beaten.
They're beating sides down the bottom. That's it. And they're not even doing that in the most convincing fashion. I think the most convincing display they've had so far is when they absolutely dominated Tonbridge Angels in the FA Cup, 2 divisions lower. And that's probably the most convinced I've been by Bradford this, which is really not encouraging to say.
It's shocking. And
7 defeats in the last 9, chaps. That's the current run. 4 in a row in the league. I mean, I dare not look at what it is in all competitions, but it's not good. Not good at all.
It's really sad to see.
They should be nowhere near there. It's terrible.
Interesting to see what happens in January. I know that there is talk of a couple of signings already being lined up, but honestly, they've got.
Where do you start?
Well, they haven't got a small squad either. You know, and this is a side that have been falling. Let's be honest. Last 3 years, you look at their way they've been going. They've signed, I think, a new chief executive, or is it director of football? One of the two.
Yeah, CEO, I think it was.
CEO, and that didn't go down particularly well, even though the guy, I think, deserves an opportunity before people start getting on his back. But I think they were hoping for someone with a bit more experience.
What they really didn't like is that I think it was last night, Bradford put out a video saying we still keep fighting. Showed all the goals that they'd scored.
Yeah.
Most of them were going to defeats, by the way. And then today they didn't have a shot on goal. Or yesterday even. They didn't even have a shot on goal in that game against Carlisle, which really doesn't send out a good message. It really did not deliver that, did not get a good reaction, that video last night, on Friday night even.
It was a bizarre video. I'm all for the club putting out tweets to try and bring the support behind them, but putting a video together making out that you're something you're not is bizarre.
Yeah, fans. The thing is, fans are not daft.
No,
they
see right through it.
Yeah, not good. No shots on target at all yesterday, like you say. So. And then finally, the team that we go in depth. In fact, let me just bring you up to date with some of the results yesterday. So Bradford did lose 1-0 at home to Carlisle. Harrogate lost 1-0 to Forest Green. Forest Green have got the best away record in this division this season. Yeah. Only Oldham are close. They've got 17 points on the road. Oldham have got 16 on the road. Mansfield and Crawley, 3-3 draw. Crawley away can't win, but Mansfield probably were the better team in that. And in the end, it would have been harsh to see Mansfield lose that game. Newport beat Morecambe 2-1 to continue their excellent form and keep them top of the table. Stevenage and Southend 0-0. What a surprise!
Didn't see that coming.
No, not at all. Walsall's best performance of the season. Easily this 3-1 away win at Tranmere, who've been in great form themselves. We'll keep an eye on that because that was an excellent result. And obviously Colchester beating Grimsby side, who are in a bit of a sorry state at the minute, 2-1. The U's won that one. Barrow losing at home to Salford by a goal to nil. Barrow just really unlucky that they're a good team. They play good football at times, but they just can't seem to get the wins. But the only other result I want to end on is Bolton 3, Port Vale 6. Dan,
I don't know why you're ending on this one, James.
Unbelievable. Dan, a Port Vale fan, was asking us last week what our thoughts were on their 5 defeats in a row. What an emphatic way to come back. I mean, to be honest, they were a bit sloppy at the end to allow Bolton back in it, in a loose sense of the word, back in it. But Great result. David Worrell is, despite their poor run, I think I put out a stat that he has created the most chances in the division and has the most assists as well. Are we? Some people are talking about getting rid of Askey after that poor run. I mean,
Behave.
Yeah, not for me. What do you think, Ed Conway? You're a big fan of Port Vale and what they were doing. You were sort of bigging them up pre-season. They've dropped off a little bit, but that's an emphatic way to come back, isn't it?
It is, but I'm not going to jump to any conclusions till about a few games from now. You want to see the progression with it. I think it's difficult to not be reactionary in football, but we can't be too much that we get too ahead of ourselves and think that this is a turning point. You only really see that a few games from now, but this is a fantastic and, coming into this game, Bolton had won the last 5 games in a row. Port Vale had lost the last 5 games in a row. So naturally, you would expect it to finish 6-3 to Port Vale. That's exactly how you would expect things to go. But this was just a ruthless first start display, and he went through a lot of changes. Did Ian Evatt early into the second half to try and make it, and they pulled themselves back into it sort of, but they were 6-1 down at the time, so you can't really say it's sort of a comeback. It was just kind of more making the score to look perhaps a bit more competitive. But this is a fantastic win to Port Vale at a timely moment, and a example to Bolton that they've still got a bit of a way to go yet to be amongst the division's best.
Indeed.
Just looking at those substitutes, you can see that they've come on in the 54th minute. So you can imagine that half time, the 3-1 down. We'll give them 5 minutes just to see how they do.
Yeah. Not a particularly memorable debut for George Thomason. We'll put it that way. Playing in midfield for Bolton, he had quite a hard day.
Yeah, not good at all for Bolton, who we thought would win the division, but there you go. Really not quite cutting it as yet. I would say about those defeats that Port Vale had as well, all by 1 goal. So, they're a competitive team, and maybe the performances weren't good, but they were in all those games. Especially the Leyton Orient one where they conceded late. Tranmere, who were in great form, beat them 4-3, and deserved it, to be fair. Tranmere were the best team in that game. But, it went to Newport, lost 1-0, a late goal in that, I think it was as well. So, given the result yesterday, let's like Ed says, give it a bit more time. They've got 2 home games coming up against Colchester and Forest Green. That'll be difficult, no doubt about it. Both good sides, so and judge them on that. The league table. Let's have a quick squiz, because as we know, Newport are top of the league, a point ahead of Cheltenham in second, and Forest Green up to third. Cooper's side doing pretty good job, I think, overall in this season, and let's hope that they don't sort of drop away like they have done in previous seasons. Carlisle fourth, wonderful season that they are having. Exeter, Cambridge and Salford in those playoff places, with Leyton Orient just outside after that defeat to Scunthorpe yesterday. In the bottom places, no surprise of course, Southend really struggling in 24th, Bradford in 23rd, and then Stevenage, Barrow, Grimsby just outside. Chaps, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming back on and getting up early and giving your thoughts as per usual.
Pleasure as always.
And thank you for listening. And without rambling on too much, just really appreciate all your support, and hope you all have a good week, and we'll be back soon.